I am so excited to share my latest resource, downloadable print your own flashcard decks. These have been created following my many years working with children of all abilities in the clinical setting, and my themed flashcard decks work. The kids love them because they're engaging and they encourage movement, learning, coping skills, and just plain fun. From dinosaurs to Halloween, each deck includes suggested and themed centering techniques, warm-ups, guided meditation, relaxation, yoga-based movement, and games. Each card in the deck includes multiple yoga-based practices to choose from, meaning you can enjoy a different experience each time you play, and there will always be something that's suitable and accessible for the child you are working with or the setting you are working in. These are highly adaptable tools, and they work in the classroom, hospital, office, or home setting. Download and print on card or paper stock of your choice and enjoy creative, adaptable, and accessible adventures for many years to come with children of all abilities and in all settings. I promise you will not regret adding a set of 2 of these to your resource collection. And keep checking in. I have created a lot of these decks over the many years I worked in the clinical setting with children of all abilities, and I'm slowly updating and releasing them to the public so that all children can benefit from these wonderful tools.
And Mindfulness, a training program for pediatric professionals, educators, and parents. Today's session is part 3 and the final session of fundamentals of yoga-based movement. And today we'll be covering traditional yoga stretches and postures that fall under the categories of inversions and balancing postures. So we've reviewed the benefits of yoga-based movement and how they apply to developing children in the previous 2 webinars. And we just want to review today, just before we move into it, just as a little refresher. When we think of developing children and yoga-based movement, we are supporting the development of gross motor skills, including gross motor planning and bilateral integration. We're also helping children to improve their physical strength. So that's the core and the extremities. We're also improving balance, strength, flexibility, mobility. And then we're also helping to develop that mind-body awareness, especially when we're doing challenging postures, such as inversions and balance, because we really have to be mindful as we're doing this. We have a lot more control of the body. It's a little bit challenging. So when a child achieves a challenging posture and finds success, it also helps to boost their confidence. We really have to be aware of the mind-body connection when we're doing something that's a little bit tricky with the body. So the focus and the ability to control the body by connecting the mind and body really comes into play for kids, and it's a great learning opportunity. We're also providing a lot of sensory input through all the yoga-based movements. When we're moving the body in different ways, and especially here when we start going upside down, because we start to affect the vestibular system as well when we're inverting. So as these sensory systems are being developed, if we're providing a nice balance of sensory input to aid that development, it's really, really helpful. And in terms of children's energy levels and arousal levels, a nice balance of sensory input can provide children with that sense of organization to feel calm and relaxed and centered and grounded throughout the day. We've talked a little bit about kids just simply not knowing what to do with their body. So by offering them some controlled movements with that mind-body connection and teaching kids, hey, I am the boss of my body, and providing an outlet to get some of that energy out and help children to feel relaxed and organized, is really, really beneficial. And then, of course, we don't want to forget our brain. If we're moving both sides of the body, we're coordinating from each side of the brain. So we're balancing the left and right hemispheres of the brain through body movement. So balancing postures, let's explore the benefits of balancing postures. Where improved focus requires a lot of focus. When we think of balance, we think of standing on one leg. And today we're going to explore definitely some standing postures that are accessed from a standing position, balancing postures that are accessed from a standing position. But we're also going to explore some from the seat, from sitting on the butt, or even from a prone position. So it's not just one leg on the floor when we're balancing. We can balance on one hand and one knee. We can balance on the butt. Now, when we think of that, we often think of the body part we're balancing on. Well, of course, that's important, but the rest of the body is important too. The more engaged and aligned the rest of the body is, the lighter it is, the more lift we create. And that will enable us to hold the posture longer instead of just dumping the weight into whatever the support limb or body part is. Focus is so important. If we start thinking about something else, we will fall out of the pose. Being aware that true mind-body connection, I'm the boss of my mind, I'm the boss of my body, and that true focus is really what's going to help you to succeed in balancing. Strong cores, of course, aligned bodies, coordination. We've got to coordinate, and you'll see that as we explore some of these postures. It's not just the body part we're resting on. We've got to coordinate the rest of the whole body to be engaged and moving in sync and breathing in sync and being mindful. And then, of course, all that ties into body awareness and stability. So the more stable we are, the more aligned we are, the more focused we are, the easier it is to balance. So let's explore some balancing postures. We're going to begin with a butterfly, stretching butterfly, and that's a balance pose that's accessed from a seated position. Then we'll go on to explore some balance postures that can be accessed from the prone position. And today we'll be exploring balancing table and side plank. So we'll get the video started. We begin in butterfly with the feet together and the knees open out to the sides. We're going to take our peace fingers, so our index finger and middle finger on each hand, and hook those around our big toes. So we're going to grip with our thumb and our two peace fingers. And I like to draw my feet in a little closer, really press into the sit bones, nice long spine, and an engaged core. So core is the secret. A nice strong core is one of the secrets to balance. The other is meditation and focus. So we're going to breathe. And we're going to inhale, lengthen one leg, exhale to center, and then as I inhale, extend the other one, and then I'm using my core, I'm pulling on my toes, and I'm getting a great stretch in my legs, in my hips, in my core, and of course, I'm balancing. Now, this is a fun one for kids because it's not a big deal if we lose our balance. The worst that can happen is we roll backwards. And we really don't have very far to fall, so it's not a big deal at all. Balancing table, beginning table position with the knees in line with the hips and the feet in line with the knees. Everything hip distance alignment. And the wrists and shoulders, shoulder width apart and aligned. Gazing forward, tailbone and crown move away from each other. So we're in basic table. Hips are square with the floor, as are the shoulders. And we want to maintain this even as we move into table. So we're going to reach the right arm forward at shoulder height. And then we're going to take the left leg back to hip height. Every inhale, I'm lengthening my left heel and right hand away from each other. Every exhale, even though I'm strong and I'm lengthening and I'm pressing into the floor all at once, my core is strong and engaged, I'm using each exhale to allow myself to soften into this stretch. And then we'll release back to table and do the other side. So inhale, left arm and right leg. So we want to be sure we're at shoulder height and that the hips remain square. So turning the pinky toe down and flexing the foot while we're reaching the hand forward can help with that hip alignment.
returning. Side plank. So we begin in plank. Nice strong arms and shoulders. Shoulders are relaxed away from the ears. Core is engaged. Legs are engaged. I'm pressing back through my feet. Moving my right hand, one hand print over, so it's coming underneath my face. I'm going to roll onto the outer edge of my right foot. Stack the inner edge of my left foot on top of my inner edge of my right. Pushing the floor away with my right hand. On an inhale, I'm going to reach the left arm up. And I'm pressing through the feet, pressing through the hands, breathing and gazing up at the left fingertips. If that's comfortable on the neck, if it's not, we can gaze forward or even gaze down. Modified side plank. I begin in table with my hands close to the top end of the mat. And we'll begin on the right side. So I'm going to move my right hand, one hand print over, so it's directly under my face. I'm going to turn my right toes out just slightly. And when I move this leg, you'll be able to see clearer what I mean there. And then I'm going to take my left foot, extending my left leg straight out, placing my foot on the floor. So you'll see how I've moved from this original table position to my foot just kicking out behind me like a kickstand. Now there is the option to tuck the toes for a little more stability, or just have the foot on the floor. And then we reach the arm up, the left arm. So the left leg's extending, foot flat on the floor, hips are rotating out. I'm pressing the floor away with my right hand and lengthening my right arm and my left arm up to the ceiling and gazing to the fingertips of the top hand if that's comfortable for the neck. And of course I'm holding and breathing here.
Okay, so there are our balancing postures that can be accessed from a seated or a prone position. We will go on to explore some standing balancing postures. So we have tree, eagle, chair, crescent lunge, half moon, and warrior three. So we'll get started right away with those.
Different stages pose. When you're working with young children, you may find, especially young children, a little bit challenged in terms of balance, and they may require assistance. Practicing tree by a wall, or practicing palm to palm with you, the teacher, or their peers, and also offering them these stages. And as they develop the skills to balance, you can add on and increase and take them to the next level of tree. So we'll begin with both feet rooted into the floor, hands at heart center, shoulders relaxed. And I'm going to push down through my left leg, and this is becoming my tree trunk. So the leg is nice and strong as I press the sole of the foot into the earth. And I'm turning the right knee out to the side. I've come up on the toe, and I'm pressing the heel and the sole of the foot into my left ankle. Now, this is the perfect first stopping point for tree. So it's a little bit of a balance challenge, but we still have the toe tucked, and it's offering a little bit of stability. Now, the next stage is to bring the sole of the foot to the inner calf. Now, a few little cues and pointers here. Still pressing down through the standing leg, and then pressing the sole of the foot and the calf into each other. So what that does is it draws all the energy in to the center line of gravity. So we're just pulling everything in. The pressing down is the action, the reaction is we're lifting up, so we're staying lifting up, we're not falling. And the next stage would be to bring the foot to the inner thigh. Now we avoid the knee. The knee joint is designed to flex and extend or bend backwards and forwards. It doesn't rotate and it doesn't move laterally. So if we suddenly put a foot on our knee and try to make it move laterally by applying pressure, lateral pressure, we can damage the knee joint. And you definitely want to be aware of that for developing children as much as you do for working with adults. So I'm pressing down through my standing leg. Even though my foot's on my thigh, I'm still doing the same thing I did on the calf. I'm pressing the foot into the thigh into the calf, and that's just drawing all of that energy into the center line and helping me lift up and be light and graceful. And then I'm bringing my hands to heart center, and we can stay here, or there's the option to grow the branches and extend the branches into a tree. Eagle pose. We want to begin with our feet hip distance apart. And we'll begin in chair pose. We're going to sweep the arms up by the ears, take a breath in, and exhale, sit back into our imaginary chair. And I'm going to sweep my left arm under my right, crossing just above the elbows, and then I'm wrapping my forearms so my hands meet. I'm drawing my elbows up to shoulder height and moving my forearms away from my face. At the same time, I'm squeezing the shoulders behind my back. That's giving me a nice stretch across the shoulders. And now I'm going to lift my left leg up and over my right, and I'm going to wrap that foot around the calf. Aligning the knees and elbows, taking a breath in here, and I'm going to sink down a little bit further, squeezing everything in and breathing. So we want to keep the shoulders over the hips, and then I'm going to slowly unwind and show you a few different stages of that for children. So the wrap in itself may be tricky for children. So we have the option of just crossing once and having the backs of the hands together. We also have the option of crossing the arms and resting the hands on the shoulders. So there's stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. Sinking back into the chair, we can do any of those stages for the arms and simply stay here with the legs just in a chair pose. We can add on by crossing over and placing the toes on the floor. So we have that balance challenge, but there's still that little bit of stability we're gaining from tucking the toes and using it like a little kickstand. So just for now, I'm going to cross my hands to my shoulders while I'm demonstrating the legs. The next stage would be to wrap and bend the knees, but I've still got the toe on the heel behind the heel of the front foot. And then finally to wrap that foot around and sink the hips down. So lots of stages. You can do just the arms, you can work on just the legs, and then you can bring the two together. Chair pose, we want the feet hip distance apart. And we're going to inhale, sweep the arms up overhead. Exhale, relax the shoulders. Take a nice easy breath in, and on the exhale, sink the hips back as if we're sitting in an imaginary chair. And we want to gaze down and make sure we can still see our toes. The knees aren't coming forward of the toes. We want them sinking back. Tailbone is slightly touched, so the core is engaged and protecting the back. And we hold and breathe here, sinking the hips back. It's as if someone put a chair behind us. We went to sit in it and someone whisked the chair away. And we're frozen in that motion of, whoa, where did that chair go? Okay, so that is a bit of a balance challenge. It's also a nice hip stretch and works the thighs, works the hamstrings, great release for the low back, and it's a core challenge as well. Now, balancing chair, a little bit trickier. Gonna reach the arms up, relax the shoulders. Now I'm coming up on my tippy toes. Taking a breath in, and I'm going to breathe out. So the knees will come forward of the toes in this variation of chair. And I'm going to come down, not all the way down. My butt is not on my heels. I'm using my quad strength to hold myself here and my balance skills. And then slowly coming up, all the way up on the toes, and then releasing out. Now I'm going to turn profile to show you all of that again. So feet are hip distance apart. Inhale, arms sweep up. And then exhale, I'm sitting back in that imaginary chair. I'm tucking my tailbone, so my core is engaged, my back is protected. My knees are not going past my toes. Shoulders are relaxed. So this is our chair. I'm going to come up out of it a little bit. Come onto the toes. And we're going to do the balancing chair. So I'm coming down, lifting up through the heels, shoulders are relaxed, I'm breathing, See how I'm not sitting on my heels, but I'm holding my chair, then I'm coming all the way up onto my toes, and release. Crescent lunge. My feet are hip distance apart, so even though my legs are scissoring apart in this pose, they're maintaining hip to knee alignment. So my feet are in line with my knees, in line with my hips on both legs. The knee on the front leg is in line with the ankle, and my back toes are tucked. My leg is really strong. I'm pressing my thigh up towards the ceiling, activating the entire back leg. It's nice and strong. And then I'm going to sweep my arms up by my ears. And this may be enough of a challenge, or we can take it into a little bit of a back bend to add on to the balance challenge. Now, if this is too challenging for a child, we can come down onto one knee and do crescent pose with knee down. Balancing half moon. Today I'm going to use the block, and I'm going to use the block on the highest setting. You could use it on the medium or the low, and perhaps even eventually reach the floor. The reason I'm demonstrating with a block today is because it really shows how you can use the block to bring the floor to you and create a lot of space, because balancing half moon is a balancing posture. It's also a hip stretch, and it's a nice expanding posture. We expand the body in 3 directions. So I'm going to face the short edge of my mat. Today I'm balancing on my left side, so I've got my left foot slightly forward, toes are perpendicular with the short edge of the mat. My back leg and my right, the toes are pointing towards the top corner of the mat, the top right corner. My feet are hip distance apart. It's almost like a very short warrior one stance, so it's not as long, with the front leg straight for now. I've got my block. I'm going to bend my front knee, and I'm placing the block in front of my foot and to the left of it, so to the outside of the foot. And you can see it's quite far. My toes are here and the block is all the way over here. And I'm going to show you why as I come up. So you can see as I lift my back leg and I reach my left hand to the block, I have space here. If I had the block back here, I'm shortening here. We don't want that. We want to create space in the body. Creating space in the body gives us a lot more room to expand, lengthen, and to breathe. So, place the block. I'm just resting my palm on the block. I'm barely putting any weight in there. Pushing the floor away with my leg. All the strength is coming from my leg and my core. Barely any weight in my left hand. And you can see I'm rotating my shoulders and hips out to the side. So my toes of my lifted leg is at hip height, and my toes are pointing toward the camera. And I'm going to reach my right arm up, and I'm lengthening from my lifted right leg all the way through to my crown. I'm lengthening on my standing leg. I'm pressing it into the floor, the leg's nice and strong, all the way up to this hip, and I'm expanding the arms. I'm reaching the fingers away from each other. And of course, I'm breathing. And this is balancing half moon. You can see I have space on the right side and the left side of the torso. Modified half moon. So we're going to do half moon from the knees. So we begin in tabletop, and we're going to kick the right leg out so it comes off the mat slightly. The shin is still on the floor and the top of the foot is on the floor. So it's like a little kickstand. And then I'm extending my left leg behind me, rotating my hips so it opens out toward the left side of my room. And I'm flexing my toes. My foot is parallel with the floor. So the inner edge of my foot is facing down and the outer edge of my foot is facing the ceiling. My foot is flexed. It is at hip height. And I'm pressing the floor away. See, I have length on the right side of my torso as well as the left. And then finally we can reach the arm up. So we're balancing on the knee, and still just like in regular balancing half moon, we're lengthening from the foot all the way through to the crown, lengthening through the arms and creating a lot of space in the body. Warrior 3, we begin in mountain pose, and on an inhale we sweep the arms up overhead into extended mountain. Exhale, relax the shoulders down the back, maintaining this engagement, length and strength. I'm going to step my right foot forward to begin. So I'll use an inhale just to align here. Exhale to soften. And on an inhale, I'm going to lift my left leg up behind me, reaching it directly out, level with the hip. The foot is straight back behind me. I'm flexing my foot so that the whole leg is engaged and strong. My hips are square to the mat, and I'm still reaching my arms forward. So my shoulders are softening away from my head, and I'm reaching through my arms and kicking back through that back leg. My standing leg is strong, pushing the floor away, and I'm lengthening in all three directions. So the three directions, I'm lengthening through the standing leg, I'm lengthening through the lifted leg, and I'm lengthening through the arms. A modification for Warrior 3 for children who are developing the ability to balance would be to use a chair. You can place the chair on a yoga mat, and that stops it slipping, so it's nice and safe. And just as with regular Warrior 3, we'll begin at the ends of the mat. Inhale, find length and space. Exhale, step the front foot forward. And then use an inhale to slowly come on up, lengthening the body. And we can either grip the chair with the hands or rest the forearms on the back of the chair. And then here we would work on aligning the hips, lengthening the leg behind, rotating the toes down, and of course, breathing and alignment. And then as we become confident, perhaps we could reach the hands behind and eventually come into the full expression. Plow pose. So you can see I'm at the very top of my mat, and
Okay, so there were our balancing postures. We explored balancing postures that can be accessed from a seated, prone, and standing position. As we've discussed before during this three-part series on yoga-based movement, yoga-based stretches and postures for movement, meditation, and mindfulness sessions, there are many, many different yoga postures and many variations of those postures. I do recommend my book, Teach Your Child Yoga. We're covering a lot of the basic foundational postures in this three-part webinar series. Having a tangible resource that you can refer to is very, very helpful in addition to the instructional videos from this webinar. The book has 50 yoga poses and variations of those poses. And it also includes a lot of handy tips and adaptations for each developmental stage. So if there's variations of the posture that will support a certain developmental stage, it will be in this book. So it's a very helpful tool when you're working with children of different ages. There's also a lot of other fun stuff in here: breathing techniques, warm-up sequences, lesson plans, and games. So it's a very valuable tool. I highly recommend it. You can find it at most major booksellers. Amazon.com should also carry it too. So we'll move on to inversions. So when we think of inversions, we often immediately think of headstand. But even a lot of the standing forward folds that we explored last week are inversions too. What do inversions do? What are the benefits of inversions? They strengthen, tone, and stabilize the core. If you're going upside down, you need that strong core to support you. Just as you need your strong core to stand up. It's no different when you're going upside down. A lot of the inversion postures engage and strengthen the upper back muscles. We're developing our balance skills. A lot of inversions also require balance. Challenging inversions also require intense mental focus, just as balance do. So we're really not only benefiting the body, but we're benefiting the mind by bringing meditation into the mix. And what I love about inversions is because typically we are going upside down, it's a nice subtle reminder to remind us to take a different viewpoint every now and then, or see things from a different perspective. So we're going to begin by exploring inversions that can be accessed from a supine position. When you think of inversions and think of headstands and going upside down, you don't necessarily think you could invert from the back, but you can. So a couple, the inversions we're going to explore from the supine position today are plow, waterfall, shoulder stand, and then we're going to explore a yummy favorite restorative inversion of mine. That's legs up the wall or legs on a chair. So we'll get the video started and explore these supine inversions.
And I'm going to slowly come down to my back, knees bent, feet are on the floor.
Hands alongside the torso, palms down. And this, I'm doing it this way because I'm going to press into the floor and use that resistance to help lift myself up with control. Now, plow is an inversion, but it's also a back bend. And when we're accessing back bends, especially from the floor, it's very important while we're bending the spine to not rotate the cervical spine as well. So vitally important to keep the neck neutral, gazing straight up. So I'm going to press my hands into the floor and lift my feet up over my hips. And then I'm going to lift up and reach my feet behind me and keep this space here between my chin and my chest. So my cervical spine is still lengthening. And then I'm going to bend the elbows and just shuffle the shoulders a little closer together, bending the elbows, pressing the hands onto my back. And my toes are tucked right now and I'm pressing through the toes so my legs are nice and active. I could also untuck the toes and place the tops of the feet on the floor. And this is plow pose. To come out, placing the hands back on the floor, I just gently roll using some core control here. So it's also a core strengthening exercise. Can slowly with control reverse out of the pose. Waterfall pose, you'll need a block, either on its medium or low setting. If you don't have access to a block, a folded blanket or a folded pillow could be helpful as well. Gazing straight up, we're going to lift up into a mini bridge pose and then slide the prop just under the pelvis. So it's between the two hips and I'm settling my lower back right onto the prop, and the sacrum, the lower part of my spine, is what's making contact with the block here. Now I'm going to press into my elbows and tuck my shoulders just under the back side of my body. What that does is it just expands the chest and the tops of the shoulders a little bit more, getting a little bit more of a stretch here. So that's optional. And you can see I'm inverting, my heart is higher than my head. Now from here, I'm going to take the legs up and be like a waterfall. Just hang out here, relax, and enjoy this nice, relaxing, restorative posture. Now for a lot of people, this would not be restorative. If you have tight hamstrings, tight quads, or a weak core, holding the legs in this position would be really, really challenging. So I'm going to show you how to use a strap. And we would hook the strap around the feet and extend the legs up. And what we're doing here, we're going to slide the hands down the strap until the elbows make contact with the floor. So between the elbows and the flexing feet, we have the strap. So it's acting like a bungee and holding everything in place. And it's really, really restorative. It's almost effortless. Shoulder stand. I've got my hands alongside my torso with my palms facing down, and I'm going to use the resistance of pressing into the floor to help lift myself up into shoulder stand. My knees are bent and my feet are on the floor. So I'm going to lift my feet up, roll up, lift the hips away from the floor, and I'm walking my shoulders together and my elbows toward each other and walking my hands along my back. And then I'm bringing my legs in line with my hips, flexing my toes and gazing up at my toes. There's a little bit of space between my chin and my chest as I press into the shoulders and lift the feet up towards the ceiling. And we hold hold and breathe and hang out here in shoulder stand. Legs on a chair. This is a nice restorative supportive posture that is a mild inversion. You'll see I have a chair sitting next to me and I've placed the chair on the yoga mat. So this is a very important safety issue. With the resistance that the yoga mat provides, it makes the chair a lot more stable and safe. So I'm positioning my body perpendicular to the chair as close as I can get, and then I'm going to come down on my back and swing my legs onto the seat of the chair and swing my body around. So my upper body's on the floor, my calves are resting on the chair, and now my job is just to relax. And then to come out, legs up the wall. So I have a mat positioned with the short edge against the wall, and I'm side settling up against the wall as close as I can get. And then I'm going to come onto my back, swing my legs around, scooch my butt close to the wall, and then rest my heels and legs against the wall. And then reach my arms out to the sides and just relax. Dolphin pose. We begin on all fours.
So they were our supine inversions, and we'll move on now to inversions that can be accessed from a prone position. We're going to explore cat pose and rabbit pose. From there, we will move on to some standing inversions. So today we're going to explore dolphin and gorilla. So we'll get those started now.
Bring the elbows to the floor. We want to align the elbows with the shoulders.
The way to do that is gripping opposite elbow with the opposite hand, and then turning the wrist to face forward. Now I actually prefer to clasp my hands in dolphin because it makes it look more like a dolphin snout, and I feel more supported with this tripod shape. You can have it with the hands straight forward, parallel to each other, or clasp the hands. Most important that your elbows and your shoulders maintain shoulder width distance apart. Pressing into the forearms, so we start to activate and engage the shoulders. We're going to tuck the toes, take a breath in, and on the exhale, press up into like a downward dog shape. So it's downward dog on the forearms. And this is a perfectly good dolphin. It's a good starting posture. And if you want more of a balance challenge, we can begin to walk the feet in. Still pressing the forearms into the floor, the hands into the floor, heels melt towards the mat, and gazing just in front of the hands. And then we'll come down and reset. So gorilla we do from forward fold. You can have a bend in the knees as needed. And we're going to lift the feet, and I'm placing my hands so the palms are facing up and the fingers are pointing back towards my heel under the foot. And then I'm placing the foot on top of that hand. So my toes are kind of, if I wiggle them, they'll massage my wrist creases. And the other foot. So it's a little bit of a balance challenge with having the hands under the feet. On an inhale, I'm going to straighten my arms, lengthen my chest and torso. So I'm gazing forward, nice long spine. On the exhale, I'm bending my arms and using my arm strength to pull my torso down, straightening my legs, and getting a nice stretch on the back side of the body. So this is a forward bend, and it's an inversion. My head is way below my heart as I invert here, and enjoy being a gorilla. Cat pose. We begin in table with the knees below the hips and the ankles in line with the knees. All alignment is hip distance apart, and we spread the fingers wide, placing the hands on the mat, wrists directly below the shoulders. Taking a nice easy breath in, we lengthen tailbone and crown away from each other, so we're having a nice long spine on the inhale. And on the exhale, tuck the tailbone, tuck the chin, press the floor away and curl up into the cat shape. Rabbit pose. We begin sitting on the heels with the toes tucked. Reaching the hands back, we're gripping onto the heels with the thumbs on the outside, fingers on the inside of the heels. I'm control, facing directly forward, taking an easy breath in. On the exhale, I'm tucking my chin and curling forward, coming down and placing the crown of my head, very little weight in the crown of the head, just on the floor in front of my knees. So my forehead's close to my knees. And then I'm going to lift my hips up, pulling on those heels, and getting a nice stretch across the back of the shoulders and the neck, and a nice stretch all the way down the back. And of course I'm inverting because my head is below my heart. And then to come out, we slowly untap the toes and can just rest in a child's pose.
So those were the inversions that we're covering for today, accessible from the prone position, the supine position, and a standing position. So you can see inversions, there's a lot more to inversions than just headstand, or even downward facing dog is also an inversion. Something that's important is to remember is that even though I've been presenting a lot of these yoga postures and stretches under specific categories, that they don't always just fall under one category. You are getting other benefits. For example, rabbit pose, the one we just ended on, you could see by looking at it, it was also a forward bending pose as well as an inversion. So forward bends, we turn the attention inward and stretch the backside of the body, but we're also getting the benefit of an inversion. So they don't always just fall under one category. And this is why I love yoga-based movement for developing children, for adults, for people of any age, because you really do get a nice holistic wellness benefit from some simple yoga-based stretches. So that's what makes it really wonderful. We're not just targeting one specific thing, but we're getting a lot of value and a lot of wonderful benefits from each stretch and posture that we create. So that ends our session for today. Next week, we'll begin the first part of a 4-part series, Essential Elements, and we'll be covering warming up. So these are the essential elements of creating really beneficial movement, meditation, and mindfulness sessions for children. And next week's focus will be warming up. So we learned the basics of the postures, we've learned meditation, we've learned about breathing. How do we help children warm up so they're safe when we go into some of these stretches? So we'll be exploring warm-ups that for specific body parts. We'll be exploring full body warm-up sequences to warm up the entire body. We'll also be exploring accessible warm-up sequences to access from a chair or even in a bed. And then, of course, because we're working with children, we're going to explore playful ways to theme your warm-ups so they're a fun story or adventure and kids want to play. I hope you join me next week for session 8, Essential Elements, Part 1.